Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're doing well. It's time to put on your tinfoil hats, everyone, because I have a CBDC update for you. You know, those central bank digital currencies. Those are just a big conspiracy theory, right? Well, maybe not, because we just learned earlier this week that the IMF is currently developing a global central bank digital currency platform, an international backbone for global CBDCs. Now, I have had some viewer requests that I cover this topic of CBDCs, and given this fairly ominous development, I figured this was a good time to do so. And today we'll dig into some of the details of this announcement from the IMF. We'll take a look at what they had to say, and also I want to examine the details of some other CBDC developments which played out just coincidentally around the same time as this IMF announcement. Specifically, I want to examine something called purpose-bound money, because this is going to give you some idea of what these CBDCs may look like if they are implemented. And honestly, it's a little frightening. So stick around, because this isn't one you're going to want to miss. Did you know SD Bullion is giving away a monster box of 2023 Silver Eagle coins? Visit sdbullion.com/sweepstakes to sign up today. So that was none other than the IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, who made this announcement surrounding a global central bank digital currency platform being developed by the IMF. She made this announcement at a conference of African central banks that was being held in Morocco, and this is what she had to say. CBDCs should not be fragmented national propositions. To have more efficient and fairer transactions, we need systems that connect countries. We need interoperability. For this reason, at the IMF, we are working on the concept of a global CBDC platform. And then she also went on to let everybody know that already 114 central banks are at some stage of CBDC exploration, with about 10 already crossing the finish line. If countries develop CBDCs only for domestic deployment, we are underutilizing their capacity. So this is absolutely confirmation that a global central bank digital currency network is in the works. And you know, if you had mentioned this several years ago, you would have been laughed at. You would have been dismissed as a conspiracy theorist. But here we are with the IMF, none other than the IMF director, telling us as much, just plain as day. And as if the fact that a global central bank digital currency is being developed, and it's not like they develop these things just in case. I mean, if they're developing it and putting resources in it, you know what the plan is here. But as if this isn't alarming enough, I want to examine a white paper that was just published by the Monetary Authority of Singapore just this past Tuesday, titled Purpose-Bound Money, because this really gives you some pretty good insight as to just how bad these CBDCs could become if they actually are implemented, or maybe I should say when they are implemented. Now, before we dig into the contents of this white paper and its implications, I want you to examine this list here of the partners and contributors that were involved in its creation. We've got Banca d'Italia, Bank of Korea. Oh, look, there's the IMF. We've got the MAS itself, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Amazon, that's interesting, DBS Bank, Faz Financial Group, Grab Holdings, JP Morgan, there's a name you probably would expect to see on this list. Got the Network for Electronic Transfers, the OCBC Bank, and the United Overseas Bank Limited. So, that kind of gives you an idea of who has an interest in creating this new monetary system. Now, if we go ahead and examine a bit of the paper itself, because the contents, I believe they have some fairly serious implications. We can start with this bit here. Unlike traditional account-based ledger systems, digital money offers the possibility of programming unique characteristics into the individual bearer asset and dictate how the digital money is to be used. Okay, so you can just kind of use your imagination here. Money that can be issued with conditions built into it or that can only be spent in a specific manner. This is a central planner control freak's dream currency. This is exactly what they want to be able to do, is to control economic behavior to the minutia. And a bit more from the white paper on this idea. Programmable money refers to the possibility of embedding rules within the store of value itself that defines or constrains its usage. For example, rules could be defined such that the store of value could only be sent to whitelisted wallets. So I think a fairly obvious implication of that little snippet from the paper is that in addition to only being able to send to whitelisted wallets, you would not be able to transact with, let's say, blacklisted wallets. And how do you get your wallet blacklisted? Well, I suppose that criteria would be left up to the bureaucrats and central bankers. But hey, I guess we can trust them with determining who gets to participate in the economy, right? Now, this paper is titled Purpose-Bound Money. So let's go ahead and see what the paper has to say about that term and what the definition is. From the paper, PBM refers to a protocol that specifies the conditions upon which an underlying digital money can be used. Purpose-bound monies are bearer instruments, which are transferable on a peer-to-peer basis without intermediaries. PBMs contain digital money as a store of value and programming logic denoting its use based on programmed conditions. Once the conditions are met, digital money is released and it becomes unbounded again. Okay, so two things I want to comment about this section here of purpose-bound money. This is basically a smart contract of sorts. So we could have money that, let's say, it's only usable for certain purposes, and also we could see certain events triggering the release of funds. For example, I don't know, your social credit score being high enough. Maybe that is what will trigger the release of some kind of a payment, or perhaps that will be the criteria for receiving, universal basic income or future stimulus payments, or who knows, maybe you'll have to have some kind of just a minor procedure done to get that payment released. Maybe a medical one. Who knows? Not trying to get this video pulled from the algorithm, but you get what I'm saying. Now, another issue that was raised in this paper is the idea that having these preconditions built into the money could be problematic in that it could reduce overall liquidity and fungibility of these CBDC tokens or the CBDC-based monetary system. As in, you could have tokens that could only pay rent, tokens that could buy food, tokens that could, buy automobiles, but maybe these tokens could end up becoming not interchangeable, and that's not good to have a liquid monetary system. So in the following example, this white paper illustrates how this PBM or purpose-bound money solves this liquidity and fungibility problem of CBDCs. From the paper, this can be illustrated with the example of PBMs being used as a digital voucher. A voucher comes with it a predefined set of conditions for its usage. The holder of the voucher can present it to participating merchants in exchange for goods or services, a programmable payment feature. In some instances, the terms of the voucher scheme allow it to be transferable between people. A consumer could purchase a PBM-based gift voucher and transfer it to another person who may then use it at a participating merchant. However, unlike a regular voucher, it places constraints on how the payer can use the PBM, but there are no constraints on the payee. When a consumer pays for his purchase using purpose-bound money, the digital money is released from the PBM and transferred to the merchant if the terms of use are fulfilled. Thereafter, a merchant could use the digital money for other purposes, e.g. to pay a supplier without any constraints. So, that is how they solve this problem of fracturing the liquidity of the digital money supply. Now, initially, this currency or money, whatever you want to call it, a central bank digital currency, could be programmed to only be used a certain way or only used when certain conditions are met. But then, once it gets spent under those conditions, it's free and clear, or at least more free and clear, because I'm assuming that it would still be heavily regulated. You probably still wouldn't be able to send it to those blacklisted wallets, for example, but presumably you could spend it on things of your choice. And it's not hard to imagine the ways that this PBM or purpose-bound money could be used by meddling central economic planners. So let's just say that they want to promote the use of electric vehicles, just as an easy example. Well, maybe they send out a couple of $1,000 stimulus payments, but this payment can only be used as a down payment on an electric vehicle. You can't use the money for any other purpose. It doesn't take a genius to realize that any attempt to circumvent free market mechanisms in this way is going to lead to inefficiencies, high inflation, knock-on effects, moral hazards. But of course, none of that has ever stopped central bankers and central planners in the past. And on a somewhat more disturbing note, I see a lot of potential for a brave new world type society with this type of a monetary system. If you can program the right incentives into the monetary system, you could easily create a system, in which people are thrilled with their subjugation and they just kind of beg for more. You give people an easy life by handing out, quote unquote, free money, and you can guide their behaviors by controlling what that money can do. And if you've never read Brave New World, I suggest you check it out. It's kind of the difference between the 1984 dystopia portrayed by George Orwell, in which people are kind of violently suppressed. But the difference is that in Brave New World, Huxley's novel, the vast masses of the population, they're just begging for their lifestyle and to be supported by the all-powerful kind of dystopian state that's in charge of everything. And then, they just send all the dissidents off to live in Iceland. But anyway, those are both good books to check out. I think they're probably more relevant today than ever before with this type of development that we are just witnessing on the regular here. So the IMF and the Singapore Monetary Authority, they're both working on these things, but I think one big question is, when will they arrive? When will the CBDCs be implemented? Well, all I can say is, the old adage, never let a good crisis go to waste. Some people refer to this as problem, reaction, solution, a dynamic by which, a lot of major events in human history have centered around. And what's a big problem that we have looming? I mean, there's plenty you can name, but in terms of the monetary system, how about $32 trillion in growing in debt, or $187 trillion in unfunded liabilities, or global de-dollarization? The risk of the Chinese dumping nearly $1 trillion worth of U.S. treasuries. We just had Congress warning Janet Yellen to develop a plan for that. We've also got sky-high inflation, rising treasury yields, a banking crisis this year that is just so far slightly worse than what happened in 2008. But of course, we're only about halfway through 2023, so we may see that devolving significantly before the end of the year. And you can kind of see where I'm going with this. We are on a path towards a monumental economic crisis, and these central banks and monetary authorities just kind of coincidentally happen to be working on this global CBDC payment system that can be programmed and controlled to fine-tune the economic behavior of individual actors in your state or in your economy, perhaps globally. And all I can say when I see this is, get prepared, folks. You got to make hay while the sun is shining, because I don't know when this economy could collapse, when we could see the implementation of CBDCs, but clearly something is in the works here. And I know the economy may not seem great right now, but I do think that it's very possible we could be looking back on these times from the future as the good old days. And so, I just say enjoy them, enjoy the relative abundance with your family, and again, get prepared. And for me, that means getting some hard assets outside of this digital financial system, assets that can't be inflated away, that can't be programmed, that can't be controlled by a central planner, and can't be defaulted on. Of course, I'm talking about gold and even more specifically, silver, because at the end of the day, these CBDC schemes, I think that they ultimately will be doomed to failure. Eventually, I really do think that the free market is going to win out because it is the only system that actually works. But that doesn't mean that the powers that be aren't going to try to implement this stuff. And who knows how far they'll go down that path. And if you want to preserve some wealth over to the next monetary system, the next paradigm, I do think that precious metals are probably the best vehicle for doing that. It's not financial advice, just telling you my thoughts and what I am doing. And I would also like to hear from you. What do you think? Will these CBDCs be used as a global control mechanism? Is the threat overblown, or are they on their way? Leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, everybody. Stay safe and happy stacking, and I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.